Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Assembly Committee on Judiciary to order. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Here.
Assemblywoman Cohen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here. Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblywoman Krasner. Assemblywoman Marzola.
Here.
Assemblyman Miller.
Here.
Assemblywoman Nguyen.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblyman Orntlicker.
Here.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong. Assemblyman Wheeler.
Here.
Chairman Yeager.
Here. Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong is present. I see she's on video. She might be having some audio difficulties, but please mark her as present. I don't believe Assemblywoman Krasner is with us, so please mark her, please mark her absent for the time being. That means we do have a quorum. And again, welcome and good morning to committee members, for the guests joining us on the Zoom, and for those who might be watching on the internet or on the legislature's YouTube channel. I hope you all had a really great weekend, and welcome to day 50 of the 81st session of the Nevada Legislature. Before we get started this morning, just a few housekeeping matters to go over. If you're on the Zoom with us this morning, please make sure to mute unless you're speaking. That'll help with the audio feedback. And then if you can please remember to state your name each time you speak, especially if you're answering a question. That will help our committee secretary prepare the minutes. We do expect courtesy and respect in our interactions with one another. We don't always agree on policy. That's perfectly acceptable, but we need to make sure we're being respectful of one another, of this legislative process, and most importantly, of our very hardworking staff who is helping us make these meetings possible. And then finally, keep in mind that many members will be using multiple devices to access this meeting, including desktops, laptops, extra monitors, iPhones, iPads. So please don't see that as a sign of disrespect. If members appear to be looking away during the meeting, they're most likely accessing exhibits or reading notes on another device. With those matters behind us, committee will move on to our agenda today. As you can see, we have just one bill on the agenda today. So I will now open up the hearing on Assembly Bill 284. Assembly Bill 284 revises provisions relating to statutory liens on motor vehicles. And before we get started with the presentation, I did want to let committee members and members of the public know there is a pretty short amendment that is uploaded on Nellis under the exhibit tab. My understanding is that is a friendly amendment, but we'll get confirmation from the sponsor on that, and want to welcome to the Assembly Judiciary Committee, Assemblywoman Martinez, who is here to present the bill, I think with a couple other folks from Legal Aid, Ms. Bordelin, who's joined us a couple of times, and Ms. Romero, who likewise has joined us a couple of times. So we'll give them a chance to present Assembly Bill 284, and then I'm sure we'll have some questions. So welcome to the three of you to the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and please proceed when you're ready.
Good morning, Chair Yeager and members of the committee. For the record, I am Assemblywoman Susie Martinez, and I proudly represent District 12. So with me today, we're going to have Sophia Romero, an attorney with the Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada, and Bailey Bordelin with the Nevada Coalition of Legal Services Providers. This bill is intended to include in statute a mechanism to challenge storage and repair liens for motor vehicles. Currently, the lien statute, NRS 108, provides for a way to challenge potentially frivolous liens on one's real property and mobile home, but it does not provide such a mechanism for a person's vehicle. As we all know, second to a home, a person's vehicle is the most expensive purchase that they will make. As some background, currently, if a person takes their car to a mechanic, the mechanic is required to provide a written statement estimate for the cost of the repairs, which the consumer must sign. If the repairs are being more than 100 or 20% over that amount, then the repair shop is required to get additional prior authorization for the customer. Unfortunately, all too often, this doesn't happen. resulting in surprise billing that the customer cannot afford. Another issue is that the shop will put off doing the work and then charge the customer storage fees for the time that the vehicle was in the shop, even prior to the repairs being made. So when a customer cannot pay, or if there is a dispute over the amount, the shop will put a repair or storage lien on the vehicle and then sell the vehicle. So right now, there is no formal way to challenge that specific type of lien. The bill would put in place a statutory mechanism to challenge frivolous liens in order to protect people from using their vehicles improperly. Not only is this good for consumers, but it will also help protect finance companies. A consumer is much more likely to default on a loan when they no longer have the vehicle because it was sold by their mechanic. Chair, with your permission, I would now like to turn it over to Sofia Romero, who can walk us through the bill.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Appreciate it. Ms. Romero, welcome back to the Assembly Judiciary Committee, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Yeager. Thank you, Assemblywoman Martinez. Good morning, and for the record, my name is Sofia Romero, and I'm a staff attorney with Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. Thank you so much for the opportunity to help present AB 284 here today. As Assemblywoman Martinez pointed out, this bill seeks to fill a hole in the statute by specifically challenging frivolous liens placed on motor vehicles as one would a lien on their home or mobile home. So with that, I'm just going to walk you through the bill. Section 1 mirrors the process already found in statute to challenge a frivolous mobile home lien. It gives the person challenging the lien the right to file a notice of opposition in the justice court and requires it to be served on the DMV. Once the notice of opposition is filed, the court will set a hearing within 14 calendar days after service. This time frame is important because, similar to the unlawful tow issue, we are trying to get a court decision on whether the lien, or at least the amount of the lien, is valid prior to the vehicle being sold. This section also makes it clear that this does not affect the rights of the lender. So in other words, if there's already a lien on the mobile home, like a purchase money lien, in other words, you borrowed money to buy your vehicle, it does not affect, this bill does not affect those rights. Section 3 sets forth the requirements of the notice of the lien, which is again similar to that of mobile homes. In addition to what is already in statute, it requires the amount necessary to satisfy the lien. It requires notice to the consumer of the amount necessary to satisfy the lien and a description of the process to challenge the lien. Section 4 sets forth that a vehicle lien expires 6 months after it is filed with the DMV. And finally, as Chairman Yeager mentioned earlier, there has been a friendly amendment introduced to this bill. And what that amendment does, it is essentially excludes tow cars from this bill, because tow cars are governed by 706.4463, and their fees are set and they are regulated by the Nevada Transportation Authority, and they have certificates of public convenience. So they are already governed by their own regulatory agency. And so we felt that it was appropriate to exclude them from this. So with that, we are available to address any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And let me check to see, are there any questions from committee members this morning on Assembly Bill 284? Let's go to Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to you. Ms. Romero, I think you may best answer this. I had several questions, but your amendment really does help clarify them. The two questions I have would be, if the lien expires in 6 months from filing, do we just start over again? The repair company or whatever would have to go through the whole process again, or can they renew their? Is my first question for you.
For the record, Sofia Romero, as Chairman Yeager, through you to the Assemblyman, this bill will hopefully be able to have a court decision prior to any lien having to be renoticed. But in theory, yes, if the lien does expire within 6 months, if a lien has been placed on the vehicle and neither the owner of the vehicle nor the mechanic shop has moved to enforce or strike that lien, then yes, in theory, at the end of the 6 month period, the lien would expire. And then if the mechanic shop wanted to introduce another lien, then they would have to start the notice process again.
Thank you. And one other question, if I may, Chair.
Please go ahead.
The other question I have, hopefully, is just as easy. I get my repair work done, I don't know, in Washoe County. I live down in Douglas County. Does the person or company filing for the lien have to file in their county, or do they have to file in the county of the registered owner of the vehicle? I see the notice to reply is in the county of the registered owner. Where does it initiate at, though, the process?
Through Chairman Yeager to the Assemblyman, Sophia Romero for the record. The Justice Court, where the notice of lien would be filed, I hate to say this, it kind of depends on the local rules for the jurisdiction. So for example, in order to file, like in North Las Vegas Justice Court versus Las Vegas Justice Court, there are certain rules. So you'd have to conduct business, live, or there's one other thing that you'd have to do in order to file in that justice court. But because the business, let's say, as your example, is in Washoe County, it could be filed in the Washoe County, in the Washoe Justice Court.
But my response, I'm the registered owner of the vehicle. My response is filed in the county in which I reside or where the vehicle, the bill, in whose jurisdiction the registered owner of the motor vehicle lives. So we would actually have two different jurisdictions involved in this. And I apologize, I'm not an attorney. I'm just trying to clarify it, that should the initial lien be filed in the county of where the registered owner or where it's registered, does that make sense to you?
Sophia Romero for the record, through Chairman Yeager to the Assemblyman. Sir, the lien is filed with the DMV, so it's statewide. So it's not, the lien itself is not filed in a court of law. The lien is filed with the DMV. And then when a lien is filed with the DMV, then the person who owns the vehicle can then go file in their justice court. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question the first time. So the lien can, then you file the notice of opposition to lien, that's what gets filed with the court. And that would be done in the place of residence for the registered owner. I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
No, and I misunderstood part of the bill then. I appreciate the clarification. I truly do. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair, for the time.
You're welcome. We're going to go next to Assemblywoman Cohen.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions, if that's okay. In section 1, sub 2, for the 5 days for service is, okay, so that's the car owner has to serve the lien claimant within 5 days. Is that a standard amount? I mean, I could see that if this is a person who's on their own, they might not have enough time to serve within 5 days.
Through Chairman Yeager to Assemblywoman Cohen, Sophia Romero for the record. I believe we got the 5 days. It was similar to that of the unlawful tow statute, or excuse me, bill that was presented earlier last week by Judge Saragosa. But we do feel that that is a sufficient amount of time for people to get notice of the opposition served on to the mechanic shop. And one of the reasons why it is kind of a tight turnaround is because these liens you're really trying to race against the clock, right? Which is why we want the tight turnaround time for the court hearing to be set and for the service to be effectuated, because storage fees are accruing every day. And every day they are getting closer to having their vehicle sold. So we did feel that the 5 days was a sufficient amount of time for people to have their mechanic served. But that's something that we can look at if others do not feel that way.
Thank you. And then and we've kind of talked about it before in this committee, but is the 5 days, is that calendar or judicial days?
The Sophia Romero for the record. through Chairman Yeager to Assemblywoman Cohen. I believe that those would actually be judicial days because it is only 5 days. But we can include that or and clarify that.
Thank you. I would appreciate that just because we've got so many of the rules changing about calendar versus judicial. So just so we've got that clear. And then if I may, Chair.
Please.
Okay, thank you. And then the 6 months, so the 6 month lien is where, and I'm sorry, you might have mentioned this during your presentation, but I wasn't quite clear. So with the 6 months of the lien, the shop owner has to refile every 6 months if they want to re-up the lien. Is that where did the 6 months come from? And is that standard to ask a small business to keep refile 6 months?
Sophia Romero for the record through Chairman Yeager to Assemblywoman Cohen. So that kind of came about because currently in statute, mobile home liens expire after 1 year. And so if the secured party, the lien holder, does not move to effectuate their lien or enforce their lien within that time frame, the lien itself expires. And in reality, I do not believe that these are actually going to be renewed because vehicles depreciate much more quickly than mobile homes. And people are not going to go 6 months without having their vehicles. Mobile homes, you're still in possession of the mobile home until you get evicted. With cars, you don't have your car. Your car is stuck at the mechanic shop. The mechanic's holding on to your car. So you're either going to file a notice of opposition to try to get your car back from the court, or they're going to sell your car. So the likelihood of the lien being renewed is actually, in reality, very, very small. And we do want mechanics to move on these because we don't want, storage fees to continue to be accruing and people to be without their cars for extended periods of time.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have other questions from committee members? If so, if you could raise your hand in front of your screen and let me know. I'm not seeing additional questions. I should note for the record that Assemblywoman Krasner is here. She has been here, I think, since the beginning of the presentation. So, Madam Secretary, if you could mark her present, would appreciate that. And seeing no additional questions, Assemblywoman Martinez, Ms. Romero, thank you for the presentation. I'll ask you to sit tight for just a moment while we take some testimony on the bill. So at this time, I'll open it up for testimony in support of Assembly Bill 284. Is there anyone with us on the Zoom who would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 284? If so, if you could unmute and let me know, please. Okay, I don't see anybody unmuting to testify in support on the Zoom. BPS, could we go to the phone lines to see if there's anybody there who would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 284?
Good morning. Thank you, Chair. For callers wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 284, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. We will begin with caller with the last 3 digits of 656. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Hi, for the record, Will Pregman, W-I-L-L-P like Peter, R-E-G-M-A-N, testifying on behalf of Battleborn Progress. We rise in support of AB 284 because it fixes a very important loophole that will improve consumer protection and prevent fraudulent liens from being put on people's vehicles. We think that this is a small but very important common sense measure to help with the legal aid process. Thank you very much, and please support this bill.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Pregman. BPS, let's take the next caller in support, please.
Next caller with the last three digits of 777. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
My name is Jamie Cogburn with the Nevada Justice Association. Cogburn is spelled Cogburn. We are providing testimony in support of this bill, as stated previously by multiple people now. This bill provides consumers a right to properly challenge and provides all parties a right to adjudicate a lien quickly and fairly and ensure that a timely resolution is reached. Because of that, the NJ is in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Cogburn. BPS, let's take the next caller in support, please.
Thank you. Next caller with the last three digits of 725. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. This is Andrew McKay, AndrewMackay. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Franchised Auto Dealers Association. We are here in support of AB 284. Want to take a moment to thank both Sophia Romero as well as Bailey Bordelin. We met with them last week, talked at length on this, learned what the intent is, and quite frankly, believe that this will address and correct a problem of, for lack of a better term, chop shops that are performing predatory actions against our consumers. And due to the fact that it puts some structure on the ability to challenge an excessive lien. So we are in support of the measure, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. McKay. BPS, are there other callers in support?
For callers wishing to testify in support of Assembly Bill 284, press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no further callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you, BPS. I will close testimony in support. I will now open testimony in opposition. Is there anybody on the Zoom with us who'd like to testify in opposition this morning? Okay, I don't see anybody turning their camera on or unmuting. BPS, let's go to the phone lines to see if there's anybody there in opposition, please.
Thank you, Chair. For callers wishing to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 284, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. For callers wishing to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 284, please press star 9 now. Chair, it appears there are no callers in opposition at this time.
Thank you, BPS. I will close opposition testimony. I will now open neutral testimony. Is there anyone on the Zoom with us who'd like to testify in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 284? I don't see any activity on the Zoom. BPS, could we go to the phone lines to see if there's anybody there in neutral?
Yes, thank you, Chair. For callers wishing to testify in neutral of Assembly Bill 284, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. We will begin with caller with the last three digits of 580. Caller, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, I'm Paul Enos, E-N-O-S. I am the CEO of the Nevada Trucking Association and also representing a number of our members under the Nevada Tow Car and Recovery Council, or Towing and Recovery Council. We really want to say thank you for working with the chair and the proponents of this measure and accepting our friendly amendment that does exempt tow operators, they are already there's some very prescriptive timelines in terms of what they do and how they need to process liens. When a vehicle is asked to be towed by a law enforcement agency, a lot of times those vehicles will sit there for longer than 6 months. So we really do appreciate the proponent and the sponsor of the bill working with us on this amendment. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Enos. BPS, is there anybody else in neutral on the phone?
Thank you. For callers wishing to testify in neutral of Assembly Bill 284, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. However, there are no further callers at this time.
Thank you, BPS. Appreciate your help on managing the phone lines. I will close neutral testimony, and I will now turn it back over to Assemblywoman Martinez and Ms. Romero for any concluding remarks on Assembly Bill 284.
Thank you, Chair Yeager and members of the committee. I thank you very much for your time this morning for allowing me to present Assembly Bill 284. I urge you to support it, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Romero, any concluding remarks?
No, Chairman Yeager. Thank you all so much for your time here today.
Great, thank you. I appreciate you being here this morning to present the bill and hope you have a great rest of the day. I will now close the hearing on Assembly Bill 284. That takes us to our next item on the agenda, which is public comment. Just by way of reminder, we reserve up to 30 minutes of public comment at the end of each meeting. Public commenters will have 2 minutes to provide public comment. Public comment is a time to raise matters of a general nature that are within the jurisdiction of the Assembly Judiciary Committee. BPS, could we go to the phone lines to see if there's anybody who'd like to give public comment this morning?
Thank you, Chair. For callers wishing to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. For callers wishing to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, once again, the phone line is open and working. However, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you, BPS. That might be a first for us to not have anybody in public comment. So at this time, I'll close public comment. And that takes us through our last item on the agenda. Before we talk about the rest of the week, anything else from committee members this morning? Okay, I don't see anything. That was a nice and quick Judiciary Committee meeting on a Monday morning, so I hope you all took advantage of the extra couple of hours to catch up on things. In terms of the rest of the week, there is an agenda out for tomorrow morning. That is an 8 o'clock agenda. We have 2 bills being presented. And then Wednesday, I believe we have an agenda out that has some work session bills. So we're putting together that work session document and we'll get that out to you as soon as possible. I do anticipate we're going to hear at least 1 or more bills on Wednesday as well. We're just trying to figure out what those might be. But right now, I believe Wednesday is agendized for 8 o'clock, and then we'll kind of stay tuned to see what's going to happen the rest of the week. But again, I do anticipate we're probably going to have Judiciary Committee meeting every day from here until the April 9th deadline, given where we are with bills that are still out there. So that's the lay of the land for now. I hope everyone has a great rest of the day, and we will see you back in this committee tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. This meeting is adjourned.
Aye.